There we go. Okay, now we're in business. Welcome to this breaking news update, which is this phenomenal little notification that we just received. I'm going to slide over here to my page, my webpage, and hopefully this, oh, it's not too bad. This has been really rough and tumble. I'm sorry that I'm so late. Yes, my daily client work does take priority. And so I was finishing up a review for a client of their PNP application. It took a little bit longer, and then I got sidetracked. And when I got sidetracked, then I forgot that Igor had scheduled this for me. So those of you who've been sitting and waiting so patiently, especially you guys on Instagram, and those of you who are watching here live, my sincerest apologies for the delays in getting this up. But here is something that is so cool. And, you know, this literally was just released hot off the press. I'm sure you've seen lots of people that have thrown out things faster than me because I have actual clients I'm working with. But it's 5 p.m. Mountain Time tonight, June the 7th. And this is a pretty cool announcement just for the simple reason that, you know, the parent and grandparent permanent resident sponsorship is a disaster. You guys that are involved in it know how awful it is and how it's been, you know, trying to get permanent residence for a parent or grandparent. It's just been terrible. And so the government, this is a really, really big thing. And I want people to understand how big this is because it is making things more flexible. Minister Fraser appeared at our Canadian Bar Association conference just last Friday, just a few days ago. And, you know, a bunch of the things that we talked about were processing times and how things are so brutal. But let's just take a look at this and then we're going to talk about it. And any questions that you guys have about this, we'll pull them in and I'll talk about it and we'll answer those because you have to have an understanding of where we came from before you can fully appreciate what this is. And there was a time when it took, oh boy, I don't even know how many years. It was like 10 years or more to obtain a permanent residence for a family member, for a parent or grandparent. And the processing, it was relatively open, so anybody could apply. And as you were submitting applications, in many cases, your parent or grandparent would actually be dead by the time the application was processed. So then the government realized, wait a minute, we can't do this. This isn't going to work. But like processing times were like 18 years. It was crazy. And it just wasn't meaningful. So they decided to then start these lotteries. And they've come in a number of different forms. There has been lotteries where it's been race to file. There was times when that filing was couriers, and whoever could get their application to the processing center in Atlanta, Canada, whoever get their application there first would win. And I remember hiring a courier company to actually deliver some of our applications and stand there on the door the moment it opens up so that we would be in the queue. I remember there were others during that time who had retained private companies to go deliver the applications, and they dropped off, you know, hundreds at a time, which totally ate up the queue. So we had that. Then we had a pure lottery where you put your name in, which is kind of the way it is now. We've had an electronic race to file, right, where you're submitting the notifications of interest. But all of those solutions, they have resisted for whatever reason. What I have tried to tell them, and I'm just going to flip back here so I can talk to you guys. I've tried to tell them repeatedly that a weighted draw is really the fairest way of going about it. So if you've applied for 1 year and you don't get drawn, then you should rank higher than someone who applies the next year. And I've had this discussion with IRCC for years, but somehow they've just struggled understanding or being able to, you know, to get this sorted out. And you know, whether it's a technology problem or what it is, I don't know, but that's the fairest way of going about the parental sponsorship. So when they realized that ultimately it just wasn't a workable solution and that people were not going to be able to, they were going to be separated from their parents, they decided to be more facilitative. So they created the super visa, right? A visa that can be issued in your passport for, you know, quite a long time, you know, even to its expiry, often up to 10 years. And the visa would be multiple entry to allow parents and grandparents who maintained their connection to their home country to be able to come and stay up to 2 years. Now, initial year, and they had to show that they had medical coverage, so they weren't going to use Canadian the Canadian healthcare system, that they had that private coverage, but they could come and they could spend up to a year and then extend for another year from within Canada, something that was really not really heard of before in the past. And And so that was the world that we were in. And as we're going through this evolution now, they've once again realized how the PR, sponsorship of a parent or grandparent just so just not working, so dysfunctional, that they've now come out with this. And the minister came. I wish he would have given us a little bit of a heads up. That would have been cool if he did that, but he didn't. So here's what we've got. Now I'm going to see if I can enlarge this a little bit. Let's see. Sometimes I can do this successfully. Make this a little bit easier so everybody can see it. And those of you who are watching on Instagram, I'm just going to tell you guys, those of you who are watching on Instagram, I recommend you slide over to YouTube just for this, because I can't show on my screen, the actual give you a view of what's on there. So I recommend you slide over to our Canadian Immigration Institute YouTube channel, and then you can watch all of that. And I'll let you guys in also on something else that are on Instagram. The battery on my phone is also dying. so it's going to be better for you to slide over there, or to Facebook, or to Twitter, or to LinkedIn, because this is broadcast on all of those avenues. But I will get this Instagram figured out. But I wanted to give the people that are watching on Instagram a shout out, let you know that I know you're there, but it's not going to be quite as good for you guys. So I recommend you slide over to YouTube just for the time being here. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'll set Instagram aside. You guys are there. I see you. I hear you. And the phone will probably die before we get through this. But if you want to watch over and get over there and slide over there, that would be great. Okay. Those of you who have questions, don't hesitate to post those, and I will work through and get those taken care of. Those of you who are watching live, let's dive in a little bit deeper here and see what we've got here. So you can see, as they work to recover from the pandemic, which basically is code for, we know our processing times are all out of whack. We're trying to get through the massive backlog of outland applications, the FSWs, the PNPs that have been overseas waiting and languishing. And so they're continuing to prioritize family reunification, which is code for spouses, not for parents and grandparents, and retain and integrate immigrants who contribute to the success of our country. That's great. And they're saying basically, we care about you, but we don't have any means of actually doing anything to help with the permanent sponsorship of parents and grandparents. And so today, Minister Fraser announced elements to Canada's super visa program. And that's what I've talked about, that ability to bring in a parent or grandparent to come and spend time with you, to help watch your kids, to be here and involved in your lives, while at the same time not completely moving, not relinquishing their residence in their home country and their ties, because that's still really important. And that's what this is as well. It's not a permanent program, it's temporary. Okay, so let's keep going through here. So you can see it will make it easier for Canadians to reunite with their parents and grandparents in Canada, and will allow super visa holders to stay for a longer period of time. And so basically what it means is they're not going to overburden the system with people continuing to apply over and over again. And that's one of the things that you were seeing a pattern with as we go through this whole process, the modernization of the system, as they're trying to deal with these backlogs. Heck, the portal today was giving us massive problems. I was trying to review an application from a client and we couldn't get into the portal. It was crazy. And that's what we're seeing a lot of. So in order to try to cut down in the volume of applications, the number of people, burdening the system that really has limited capacity, they're now extending visas for longer periods of time. And that this program right now is exactly what's happening. So you can see it will start July 4th. So it's not immediate. It'll come in July 4th. They should have done it July 1st, right? Like, why July 4th? Seriously, probably because the officers wanted to have Canada Day off and celebrate, like all of you guys. And so they decided that they were going to do it on July 4th, which is fine. Okay. So they're going to increase the length of the stay for a super visa holder to 5 years per entry into Canada. What does that mean? Well, that's a massive, massive jump. So like I talked about before, 1 year was the first entry, and then you could extend it for another 1 year. Now, with that being said, there's always circumstances that will allow someone to stay even longer than that, even before this was announced. But this kind of codifies the, not a right, but the general rule that someone should be granted that extra long period of stay so that they can come and go. Now, you can see here, people who have super visas also have the option to request to extend their stay up to 2 years at a time while in Canada. So you have the ability, not just 1 year, but to extend up to 2 years. Okay. In addition to the original visa that should be valid for up to 5 years. So it's a huge benefit for people who have parents and grandparents that want to come see them that have been separated with them for a long time. So they can come and they can stay a lot longer and they don't have to go home as frequently. Okay. This allows the minister to designate international medical insurance companies to provide coverage to super visa applicants in the future. So currently only Canadian insurance providers can provide the necessary medical coverage that super visa applicants are required to have. And then he's going to have information about designated medical insurance companies located outside of Canada. So I'm assuming they've had discussions, and it's going to be a little bit of a hit for those Canadian companies that held a monopoly on this. So hopefully it's going to result in those prices being more competitive as more companies rush to fill this void now. And the main issue whenever a parent or grandparent comes over, and the reason that they had previous restrictions to the length of these super visas, was because they wanted to make sure that people who come over are not going to cause any excessive demand on Canadian health or social services. And, as you get older, hey, you guys, I'm turning 50 this year, and I feel my age a little bit. And so I know that I'm not as healthy as I was when I was 20, although I'm not too bad. I'm not too far different. I can't dunk a basketball like I used to, or run as fast, or, well, whatever, pretty much everything physical. You can't do the same. And so those are realities. And as our parents get older and those that want to come, parents and grandparents, there's a greater likelihood that they may get sick or ill or need to use those services. So as long as the medical coverage is in place, then the government is willing to show a little bit more leeway. So back to the instructions here, you can see those are the two parts. One is to increase the length of the stay, and the other is to open it up so some companies. Now, with that being said, once again, another fancy announcement, but no specific details. So information about any designated medical insurance companies located outside of Canada will be communicated on IRCC's website when? At a later date, which is their go-to, at a later date. Okay, so, and then they talk about the history, and they say that, the super visa program, it's designed to reunite parents and grandparents, with their Canadian citizen and permanent resident family. And the multiple entry visa, which was valid for up to 10 years, like I said initially, it's allowed parents to come for up to 2 years at a time. But now the super visa is more beneficial. So it's usually 6 months or less is what the original visa was. Now, the reality is anyone who came over even on a regular visitor visa, they could always extend beyond 6 months. But when they're in Canada, if they had a justification for it, they can always file that. But immigration always messaged that, no, 6 months is all you get, and then you have to leave, which is not the case. You just have to show that you can support yourself. You're not going to work or study without authorization, and that you've got the means to basically support yourself while you're in Canada. So they say here they'll continue to uphold their commitment to keeping families together. So we'll leave it at that, and you can see the quick facts and things that they basically have in here. But as long as the parent and grandparent program is just really ineffective and oversubscribed, and they're not moving through things quickly, this is a huge benefit to all of you who have parents and grandparents outside of Canada that you want to come and spend a longer period of time with you here. And it makes sense. And I think it's a good development and a very, very positive thing that immigration has done. So yeah, so great job, guys. Like, that's actually a really, really good development. Okay, let's get to some questions here. And so Noor says, glad you're bringing amazing news. That's great. Krish, people are even shouting out and giving good positives. Got my PR. Thanks to you for all your support. I'll give you an applause there. Oh yeah, that's awesome. Okay. And Noor's congratulating. That's great. Okay. Malik says, any update on C-19? Not a thing, but trust me, I will if I hear anything about this. Okay. George, good to see you. Okay. Shabazz is asking about hepatitis B. That, my friend, is a consultation. So I recommend that you book a consult. We can chat about that. Okay. I'm not even going to post George's. Igor's like laughing at George. Okay, I'll post George just because, He says, checking in while drunk over here. Haha. Mark is the best resource. Everyone, you're lucky you found his channel. All right. George the drunk guy today is giving me shout outs. Well, that's great. Okay. Yes, you can ask questions. So make sure that you post them. We're trying to focus the topic on this announcement by Minister Fraser, that these big extended periods of time that they are adding to help make it easier for families to be reunited with their parents and grandparents. So kudos to you, Minister. Okay. Okay, so here's a question. So Noor says, from the moment we become PR, how soon can we apply for a super visa for our parents? Well, the reality is super visas can be submitted right away. Like there's no restriction one way or another. Ultimately, the key is that they meet the requirements themselves, that they have, obviously family, permanent resident or Canadian citizen in Canada, that they're coming to visit them, that they have ties to their home country because it's still a temporary program, not permanent. And so if you have all those things in place, they have medical coverage, they've got funds to support themselves. In addition, Noor, you have the ability to demonstrate that you have the funds to support them. So, all right. And Kita says here, what is your Instagram account? Okay, Igor, you can post what the Instagram account is. We'll let Igor do that. He's tuned in here in the background. Okay, let's see. I'll answer this. Let's try to keep it kind of somewhat related to the parent and grandparent, but I'll give you a little bonus. Remember, I'm going live. My Q&A is tomorrow at 10 a.m. Mountain Time every Wednesday, and so there you can get your questions answered. We're going to try to focus a little bit here on parent-grandparent issues. Okay, my study permit has been submitted in Canada for almost 2 months, but it is still being processed. What should I do? IRCC shows 3 weeks processing time, but I have no results. How to solve? There really is not much that you can do. If you're comfortable that your application was submitted properly, that it's in the queue, there's not a lot that you can do. The processing times obviously are a guide. There is, depending on if you're outside of Canada, it's not easy to figure out what has happened. With our applications, when we file study permits, we can see when they were submitted. We have the confirmation of submission, and then sometimes it's a waiting game. It's just a waiting game. But yeah, I hear for you. If 3 weeks processing time, I don't know what country you're coming from. Some countries like Japan, the approval rates are off the charts. The last I looked, they're like high 90s. If you're coming from other countries, it really, really depends on the current load. So if you're over that time period, sometimes what we'll do is we'll submit web form requests. And at times I can reach out to program managers at visa offices. But when it comes to study permits, a lot of them, when they're being processed online, you're really at the mercy of the officers who are processing them, as many people understand in the countries. Okay, Devin says, good evening. Devin here from Guyana, South America. You bet. And my son lived in Suriname for 1.5 years, serving a mission for our church, Devin. And he had some of his missionary companions that were actually in Guyana speaking English at the time while he was learning Dutch. So very cool. Okay. All right, Benode connecting in from LinkedIn. Great to have you tuning in. He says, hey, Mark, how are you doing? I have a question. Will this be applicable to those super visa applications which have been already launched and waiting for the decision? Yeah. So effectively, when they come into Canada, they usually after July, it says after July that it will come into place. If for whatever reason it's issued for a shorter period, Benode, you can always benefit from the extensions and take full advantage of the full length. So if the initial ones are only issued for 1 year, no worries. You can always extend and prolong it. That's not a problem at all. Great question. Applause for you, my friend. Great question. Okay. Okay. So another response here says, I used the web form and added more information like the passport, travel history, and explanation letter. Can IRCC see it? Well, that's all information by and large that you're going to include with the initial application. So I actually recommend maybe that you slide over and book a consultation with our office. And those of you who are watching this, for the first time, I think everybody knows that the Canadian Immigration Institute is the kind of the education and the teaching arm of Holthe Immigration Law, which is our law firm right here. And so the Express Entry course right now in Masterclass is open for people to subscribe, but you can always go here, speak to a lawyer, and book a consultation with one of our lawyers. So Alicia is awesome. We've got Chanel here. We've got our newest lawyer, Cedric. He's here. And then I'm here at the bottom. And we were all here available to get provide whatever assistance you need. And it's just holthelaw.com. So you can search up Holthe Immigration Law. Yeah, it's kind of tiny. Anyways, there we go. Okay, let's get back to some more questions. We'll answer a couple more and then we'll wrap this up. This is a short one. Remember, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, I will be here with Cedric. He's joining me as my guest, and we're going to answer more questions. And okay, let's see what we have here. Okay, Rohit says, is it mandatory, please advise, to maintain the job status for the sponsorship? Is it important to keep the full-time job after applying for a spousal sponsorship? Well, you always have to be able to demonstrate that you can support your spouse. There is no minimum income that you need to sponsor a spouse. But when you're applying, you have to be able to show that you can support them. So technically, it is possible for immigration to refuse a spousal sponsorship application if you were destitute and had no resources and no funds to support your spouse, even though they could technically come work themselves. So that is a factor that you need to take into consideration. And those of you who are going through the sponsorship process, I also want to let you guys know that the Canadian Immigration Institute, I'm just going to pull this up here so that everybody can see this. The Canadian Immigration Institute right here is the source of all of our live course, our live master classes and our on-demand courses and everything. There's CPD accreditation with this. And you can see here within the courses, the express entry, the master class will start at June 27th. But the cart's open now for you to learn and access. And late summer, I'm going to do another spousal sponsorship course. So click on here to leave a spot. And so those of you who are looking at sponsoring, this is a great place to start to get all your questions answered at a fraction of what it would cost to actually hire an immigration lawyer, including us, to represent you. Although if that's what you'd like to do, we would love to do that. Okay. So Diane says, hi, can one apply for a super visa for parents if the parent currently has 10-year valid tourist temporary visa? Well, the reality is that visa it's really a matter of them being able to extend and stay in Canada. And if they already have a super visa, then they can fully take advantage of extending to the full length of the time. So if they want to stay longer, remember there's two parts to it. One is the visa that's imprinted in the passport of the parent or grandparent that allows them to get on a plane and come to Canada. And the other part is the actual visitor record if an officer chooses to issue that to them when they come through the port of entry, which authorizes them to stay and remain in Canada for a longer period of time. It's that initial period that used to be 1 year that could then be extended from within Canada. So Diane, if your parents are here and they want to stay longer, then it's an in Canada application to extend. Our firm helps people with all kinds of applications, and we do that for our clients all the time. So we're happy to give you any instruction, direction, and consults are the best way to kind of understand what the parameters are and decide if it's something you want to tackle on your own or get some help from us. Okay. Okay, I'm going to try to just stick to the questions about, guys says, Mark, thank you. Anything for spousal sponsorship? I know what you guys are asking for is, have they created a visa for spouses? And you know what? They don't have any aptitude to do that. I know the Liberals indicated that there was going to be something in their last platform. So I would hold them to that and say, okay, well, you promised this. Well, what are you going to do about it? You know, for spouses to be separated for these lengths of time, personally, I think it's unconscionable. And there should be no reason why immigration isn't willing to grant visitor visas for spouses to be reunited. One of the main issues, I guess, is just fraud. And in some countries, when coming to Canada, the only pathway you see is through committing fraud or marriage fraud or whatever it is. It's the bad apples, the people that don't want to follow the rules that spoil it for everybody else. So when I think about all the individuals that are languishing for months and months and months and years waiting for their spousal to be sponsored, well, part of the reason that the government is so slow and has to take such great time is because of the fraud. And so, there's no advancement, no development other than them saying, oh, we're going to be flexible. Well, you apply for a visitor visa to come see your spouse from India. Yeah, good luck. Yes, it could happen, but the vast majority of times it's refused. Okay. Yes. And Rosé says here, any hope to reduce the citizenship processing times to what it was instead of 27 months? Not until they get the other stuff sorted out. They don't see citizenship as a priority. You can come and go as a PR. And so they do not see that as such an urgent priority as the reunification of families or getting all of these federal skilled worker FSW PR candidates who've been languishing outside of Canada, getting them here first. So those are the priorities. All right. Okay, Rohit says, do I think the processing times will reduce? Yes, they will. They're slowly going to come down. There's no doubt about that. Okay. Yeah. And so this is, hey, Mark, any updates on the parent PR program? Nothing. This is part of the challenge, right? So they're saying, look, we know people are stuck. We know that we're going like at a snail's pace with the processing of PR applications for parents and grandparents. So therefore, we're going to change our policies, and we're going to be more flexible when it comes to allowing candidates who are eligible for super visas to actually get to Canada and be able to remain for longer periods of time. And you can see here up to 5 years per entry into Canada. So that's really a massive benefit, And so I will give IRCC, some credit for that. Okay. So Anush says, hey, will these updates to super visa program come into effect on July 4th, apply to applications already in process and waiting for a decision? So like I said, don't worry about that. It really doesn't make a difference. As they go forward, once you've got it issued, whether it was before July 4th or after, you're still going to be able to benefit from this when it comes to extending. There's no way they're going to say, oh, if you submitted one before and you were approved, you can't benefit from that. That would defeat the whole purpose. So maybe the initial application, maybe they only issue it because it was filed before July 4th. Maybe they only issue the initial one for 1 year, but you can fully extend it to the full 5 years when you're in Canada. So after July the 4th, I can't see any world where they wouldn't do that. Okay. All right. So Nutty Raspberry, you need to book a consult. I know you've brought this up before. I'm going to just click on this triangle and tell you to slide over and book a consult so that we can look at things and give you advice. Because when it comes to the vaccinations, we need to see exactly what's going on with your situation to be able to give you advice. Okay. All right. Okay. Noor says, can a parent with a super visa apply for a driving license while in Canada or rent a house? Thank you. Well, you can always rent a house. You can. When it comes to driver's licenses, usually those are linked to study permits, work permits. And so you might be able to get a registry that's willing to grant a driver's license. But at this stage, it depends upon the province and what their local rules and parameters are. Yep. Pool Kit is, yep, you're on track with that. He says, as far as I know, anyone can apply for a driver's driving license, even on tourist visa. And looks like my my phone died, so all of the Instagrammers are no longer connected in. Okay, couple more minutes, then we'll shut it down. Okay, and will PR sponsorship be resuming anytime soon? All I can say, Diane, is that I hope so. Okay, Tushant, with the super here, let's see what we've got. Can we apply a writ of mandamus if the file is applied under tier to PR, international grad? Note, if yes, when can we apply? I linked my file 6 months ago and 13 months total. No, it's a complete waste of time for you to file a writ of mandamus when they have specifically stated that there's still going to be 30 or 40,000 applications that are not going to be processed until next year. So TR to PR, if you're paying someone to file a writ of mandamus for that, I think it's not going to be, helpful in any way, at least in my mind. And because you super chatted here, let's take a look at the levels planning for IRCC for 2022. And let me just pull this up and I'll share my screen with you guys so that we can look at this. And this is where the rubber hits the road, Tushant. Okay, so if we go over here and we look at this, you can see your category is right here, the federal economic public policies. And so for 2022, their target is 40,000. That's for the entire year. Now, if you look at 2023, they still expect 32,000 with a low, you can see here, of 25, but even a high of up to 42,000. So they're fully expecting that this is going to take up to, the end of 2023 before they finalize all of the TR to PR pathway, which is essentially the federal economic policy. If you click on here, you can see temporary public policy, temporary resident to permanent resident pathway with all admissions anticipated by the end of 2023. See? So that's unfortunately there's nothing stopping you from filing it, Tushant. If you're willing to pay a lawyer, I don't know, however many thousands of dollars to do it, but really it's not going to, in my mind, if it's within the processing times, at least what they've stated, and there are no processing times stated for TR to PR pathway, only what I've just told you about, just the fact that their levels planning expect that almost half of them are going to be processed next year. Okay. Rosé, you're very, very welcome. And good to see you as well, Chetan. Good to see you. And he says, I'm working on the challenge. That's awesome. Very, very good. Okay. Yes, Stacy, that's good, positive news. A big hoo-hoo for sure. Okay. Mohammed says, hey, Mark, I gave biometrics on April 29th for a visitor visa from Ethiopia from July 15th to September 15th. The processing time shows 48 days, and I'm starting to worry because I planned to leave. Yes. And yeah, for a new job in Sierra Leone. What is the chance of my application being processed? What can I do? Yeah, it's really, really hard to say. Africa is a disaster right now. That the processing times are really, they always traditionally have been really, really high and less of a priority. So it's hard for me to say, Mohammed. I just don't, I don't have an answer for you. I just don't know. Okay. And Tushant, you're very welcome. All right, guys, we will wrap it up there. But great news once again, as we slide over here to the announcement from the minister here. Great news that they have extended the Super Visa program for parents and grandparents to help them more easily stay longer in Canada. So thumbs up to you, immigration. And thank you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Take care.